Yo, what are you doing right now? We are going to get real about men's issues, who Jesus is, and who we are as men in Christ. We're going to hear Trey, Jeremy, Michael, and Brad break it down. These guys call themselves the Cussin Christians. All right, guys, what is going on?
Crazy. Yep.
So what do you guys think about the whole Super Bowl thing, man, with the 49ers? I called it wrong. I thought it was going to be the Ravens and 49ers, but I called it wrong.
I thought so too, but both teams melted down. The
whole playoff was a series of meltdowns.
Baltimore did not run the ball more than like 20 times, and they normally run it 40 to 50 times in a game.
And the Chiefs didn't score in the second half, and the Ravens still couldn't put any points on the board.
I think it's Taylor Swift's fault.
That's funny. You know what? I think so too.
I'm editing that out. I don't even want her name on our podcast.
Oh, you're one of those.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she generated $300 million that they can directly link to her.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, I mean.
And you watch what's going to happen in the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs are going to win because I believe Mahomes is on the caliber of Montana.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think he's quite yet like Brady, but I think he's on that.
He doesn't have the longevity that Brady had.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Right.
I don't think he ever will, though.
7 years. He's been a starter for 7. Been in the league
Has it
for
been
8.
7?
Yeah, that's what's crazy. It's been 7 years, and he's been in the Super Bowl four times now.
4 times.
4 times, 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowl championships. They lost the Super Bowl
AFC championship every year.
every year.
But nobody's got. I think the highest number of AFC or championships is 17 right now, and he had like 30 some. Brady, it's like crazy numbers. I don't think anybody's going to
30 touchdown passes in the AFC.
No,
playoff wins.
Playoff wins. That's what it was. Yeah.
Well, he went to a Super Bowl every other year of his career.
Ridiculous.
Do you hear the conspiracy theory now?
No.
Michigan's going to hire Belichick, and because Brady still has one more year of eligibility, college eligibility, because he left before and he wants to get his degree.
He's going to come back.
He's going to come back.
Can he do that with the new rules?
With the
He's not a
portal
professional football player.
He's not going to play.
with the portal and NIL, there's no telling what
I
they'll
thought once you
pull
went
off.
pro, you couldn't come back.
No, he can come back to school. I mean,
Now
he's not a pro.
that they get paid at the college level,
he's
what's
not
the
a pro
difference?
anymore. And the other good one I think is going to happen. You watch, Chiefs are going to win, and Kelsey's going to get on the 50-yard line and ask Taylor
He's going to
Swift.
propose. God,
watch it.
See, this is what we were talking about last year.
We were talking about this last week.
It's becoming more of an entertainment event as opposed to a sporting event. And when it becomes that, I'm out.
And you know when it all started? With Ocho Cinco and a marker.
Oh, that's right.
What did
T.O. signed. He signed the football.
Yeah,
He
T.O.
pulled the marker
gave it to his
out.
agent.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
See, I don't mind the entertainment factor as long as the game is legitimate.
The focus.
Yeah,
Sure.
but you got 500 flipping commercials now.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone's, what did you? Everybody talks about the commercial. What did you think about this commercial? One of my favorites is the what's up? I love that one, man.
Bud Light or something?
Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Those were
And
fun.
the Clydesdale and the dog, those are always good. But I don't know, man. I just
See,
I'm
I like
sick.
the frogs.
Oh yeah.
I like the one. Remember the dude from the South or someone walking into the New York bar, and he walks in, and the bartender, hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Well, I'm just fine, thanks. Thanks for asking me. It's a long trip up here.
That's
and
right.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
And they're all looking. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Oh, thanks for asking. That's really nice of you to ask me.
So anyway,
All right, so you got Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Who you got?
I'm pulling for the 49ers.
so much.
No.
Yeah, I am. Brock
They
Purdy.
broke
dude.
our heart,
I know.
dude.
Purdy.
I still
Purdy,
see
McCaffrey are good dudes.
they're solid dudes.
I like
get
those
it,
guys, but I don't
I-
like the team. To me, there's a no-win situation because I'm tired of the Chiefs.
Everybody's tired of the Chiefs.
Man, you sound like everybody that wasn't a New England fan. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, you are. You got burnout on the Chiefs like a lot of people do, but
Sure.
You guys drink a lot of. I know you guys drink a lot of water.
not enough.
not what I'm
I
supposed
drink too
to.
much.
That's why I go to Revive.
I drink a lot of water, and I finally realized I'm not fat. I'm flooded.
Y'all that.
Oh, boy. I saw it.
A lot of water weight over there.
I don't even know how to follow it up. I was on the way over here today. I heard an interesting fact about Caesar. And I don't know if you guys know
Augustus
this.
Caesar?
Yeah.
Dressing?
So this is actually a Christian topic. So it was interesting that the scholars are arguing over how much his net worth would have been in today's money. But according to them, it would have been a minimum of $480 billion is what Caesar would have been worth.
That's pretty
alone.
good.
Yeah, he's snaking his way up.
Yeah.
From taxes?
Well, it's not like today where you're a public servant, you don't get paid by the state, supposedly. I mean, stuff like that.
Endorsement deals.
Yeah. But they were talking about how interesting that would have been because
Pizza.
this isn't a joke.
That's when he was little, though. I mean,
well, they were talking about like how he would have been coming into the world during the time of the richest man ever, at the zenith of the Roman Empire, like the very tip, and how like from an economic standpoint that would have been very interesting for Jesus to come in as humbly as he did. And that how that would have played into the role, and that he came in against the world's richest man through a manger.
Right.
And
that's cool.
I just thought it was super cool. It was a fun fact that he came into the world and stood up to the richest man in the world.
You know what I find just fascinating? That you just used the word zenith in a sentence.
They used it on the radio station. That's
Oh,
why I did it.
my gosh.
that was my first TV.
That was on TV, too. They use the word zenith, and it actually has a meaning other than a brand name.
Yeah, the precipice, the tip.
Ooh, the precipice. Whoa.
Wow.
I was my dad's
We are
remote.
an educated and well-versed
I throw them out there once in a while, you know.
We went from football and conspiracy theories to zenith and precipice.
Yeah.
Well done.
And now we're
This
going.
might be the
and
zenith
now,
of our show.
now I'm going to shift and pivot. I went to a luncheon with our sheriff, who's pretty well known, Wayne Ivey, and we were at a men's luncheon, and there were 70 guys in the room, and he got up, and it's a Christian speaker type thing. It's called Fuel. It's a great program. You can
Did he bring his dog?
email me. He didn't bring the dog to that one, but he got in and. Something had just happened in Brevard County with a murder.
Palm Bay, yeah.
Palm Bay, and he just said, "Let me ask you guys in here, who in here has your concealed carry permit?"
Which you don't need anymore.
Right, but 2 years ago,
You did.
of the 70 guys in the room, they're like me included, 50 of us or 40 of us raised our hands. I've got it, and then he said, "Okay, keep your hands raised if you're carrying right now." And of those 40 hands that were up, mine went down. There was only like 4 people that were carrying in there. And he just looked at us and said, "Guys, you can diffuse a situation in the 5 to 10 minutes it takes my patrol officers, my deputies, to get to it." And then with what's going on today, there would have been someone down there with it. It probably could have averted the situation and the death that happened. So, I'm glad you carry. I'm glad you carry in our. I'm not going to say it, but I almost said it. I almost did. But how many people carried in our church today?
I'll be honest with you. I don't carry at church. I just don't. I mean, I feel safe there with what we have going on, but I carry all the time. The only reason I'll have one on me today is because I'm going to the doctor and I know what he's going to check, and I have to.
Excuse me.
What, you got to turn your head and cough? Turn your head and cough?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know where you're going. You're about to say it.
Is that a gun in your pocket?
Yeah,
You're just happy to see me.
But seriously, last night,
awesome.
I sat in a movie theater for 7:30. I left the movie. The movie started at 7:30. I left the movie theater at 11.
Wow.
Dang, dude.
It was the first 3 episodes of The Chosen. Now they had an intermission, so you could take a break, and I wanted to start with that today. Hollywood and scripture and biblical history. I'm fascinated by The Chosen. I have been since day one, and last night proved to be just as insightful and thought-provoking and everything else. But what do you guys think of this show?
I've seen. I did watch the first season, but I really haven't gotten beyond it. I think it's cool because there's never been anything like it where they could spend so much time on some of these details and kind of exploring personalities and Matthew being on the spectrum and all that kind of stuff. But I still see like these YouTube videos of people criticizing it, saying it's dangerous, be careful, blah blah blah. And it's like,
come on,
anything that you talk about, scripturally.
That's what people say about us. Be careful, they're dangerous.
Well, I was going to say people are they're going to poke holes in it, but can you glean the good from it? Can you be inspired by that instead of going, well, technically, the Old Testament context? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you just got sin sniffers everywhere, right? I mean, that's all it is. It's just like everything, people picking it apart. I mean, you see it on the same people that are doing that you're talking about on Instagram. They're the same ones that are saying, oh, well, if you, they're just so full of works. I don't know how to say things and be respectful about it, but it's like, come on, man, like you're missing the whole point. Right?
You're missing forest for the trees on this one.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the whole program. I love the premise. It makes Jesus look real. They even got grief because of the episode in the first series where he was with all the children, and and they didn't want it to look like he was,
crazy.
Trying to say he was a pedophile?
Yes.
What?
Yeah, people were
That's what
saying
I'm
that
saying.
that's not good optics, and he talks about the mind of a child, and the people with the mind of the child are going to be the ones the most easily saved. And
But I love this series. I do. I think it's fantastic. The actors are amazing. Little James has got cerebral palsy in real life.
Yeah.
And there's one scene where he's asked, why aren't you healing me? And he's weeping. And Jesus just gives an excellent explanation of how many more people can you bring into the kingdom by what you are going through and what you're saying and how you are. And my other second favorite one, and I know you love this one, is when he heals the paralytic by the pool of Bethesda.
Yeah, that was tough.
What I love about Peter, after he gets healed, Peter tells him, pick up your mat, man.
Get out of here.
Why should I pick up my bat? Because you're not going to come here ever. You're not going to
coming back.
You're not coming back. So that's how Jesus changes lives. He changed our lives to the fact that we're not going back to that. I'm not going back to the vomit. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is an amazing plan for my life, and I'm going to follow it till the day I die.
Yeah. And last night with the 3 episodes, they left you hit hard. I walked out of there going, well, that sucks. And with something you just said about, someone not being healed, and that's something we have to come to grips with as Christians. We're starting a new thing with our social media on the MPACT Worship Song of the Week, right? And so the MPACT Worship Song of the Week, you'll see it on the shorts on Instagram and stuff, is Even If. And I love the words because, you have the power to, get through the fire and help me through the fire. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. And last night's episode left you hanging with that. Like, holy crap, how could that happen to that person? And spoiler alert, not mentioning names, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. People we went with thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's just thought-provoking. I feel when they get to the scriptural moments, they're really true. But there's so much that you have to fill in the blanks with these 12 people, 14 people following around with Mary Magdalene and the women. There's so much that you always wonder, what were they really like?
Well, when I was in 6th grade, is when I think it was the 1980 Jesus movie that came out that was in the theaters, and it was the European Jesus with the light brown hair.
Yeah,
he was very serious, and everything was very measured, and it was
he never smiled.
Yeah, and I just remember watching that, going, I don't know, like it just seemed like I couldn't relate to this guy. Like, I don't know. What I like about The Chosen is how human they make Jesus and everybody else. It's like, okay, well, that could have been us. Like, that could have been us 2,000 years ago hanging out instead of this very measured. Like, every time he spoke in that old movie, it was like a speech. It was like this well-written speech, and it was just kind of sterile.
Like that's the only time Jesus talked was when it's written in the Bible.
I totally agree with you. You think... I did the devotional yesterday, and it was based on someone we all know that was feeling stale and needed to take a break, right? And he did. He, 2 weeks before Christmas, he checked out. He told us, "I love y'all. I need some time."
Yep.
And and I said, "Why did you do that?" And he just looked at me and said, "Because Jesus did. Jesus needed a break."
Yeah.
I wanted to throw something out, and I sent y'all the note last night, or it was not last night.
It was listening.
It was on. We were on this cruise last week, and I talked about it on the last podcast, but we were on this cruise with Mercy Me. And I'm Brandon. I'm wearing the MPACT shirt. We had an excursion one day, and we had to get on one of those a tender. It's a tender boat that we didn't come up to a dock. We had to stop. The boat picked us up, take us in. And on the way back, I'm sitting there, and I hope he's listening because I gave him the link. And there was a gentleman. There's 300 people on this boat, and we're just sitting there, kind of swaying, waiting on our turn to get up there to get back onto the boat. And this guy said, "I've seen that shirt this week. Can you tell me about what that is?" And I told him about what we do and who we are and the healing and what we focus on. And right there in front of a dozen strangers, he just, "I need to get with you guys." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I'm 5 years sober, and my addiction nearly destroyed us." His name was Brad. Her name was Heidi. But he gave me his whole testimony while we were on this tender boat, over 15 minutes. And then we got to talking, and he's from Wisconsin, and I just said, wow, you know what? I don't have really anybody that I know of that follows us from Wisconsin at this time, and I would love if someone ever calls from that area to be able to put them in touch with you. All of a sudden, just boom. Coincidence?
Nope.
Don't believe in coincidences.
I don't either.
Nope.
But that's what you brought up was we put so much into that word. What a coincidence that this happened. And I just said, no, God's the coincidences, I heard the description, are God's way of remaining anonymous, right?
Do you guys actually say coincidence? Like in your daily life? Like,
I
you say
don't.
that?
Not much.
Not really.
Not much.
Because it's a God thing.
I don't say
always it's a God
zenith.
thing.
I don't say zenith either.
Or
But
precipice.
You say God wink a lot.
I say, yeah, because I borrowed that from our pastor.
Zenith.
Yeah.
I'm not that dumb. I mean, just sort of, like,
What does
I use a
zenith-
lot of four-letter
what does
words
zenith
because I'm
mean?
so intelligent.
Top.
The precipice, the tip.
The zenith means the precipice. So what does the precipice mean for Notre
The
Dame here?
very peak.
Touchdown Jesus. I think there is no way, because what are we supposed to do in the Great Commission to preach the gospel to everyone, all the world? Go out, and sometimes we get so stinking busy and we don't listen, and that's my goal this year, is to listen. And can I tell a story about?
Was it a coincidence?
Is this the playground story?
Yes.
Dude, tell that one.
Oh boy, I don't know if I know the playground story.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
All right, so I get this claim, and I'm looking at the name, and I didn't, I do 70 a month. Okay, never thought it. So it's got his name, and then it's Mishawaka is like Cocoa Rockledge. Mishawaka is Cocoa Rockledge is South Bend, Indiana.
Okay.
All right, so I'm looking at the name. And he's down on the West Coast, and I go into the file. For some reason, Lord, I'm just being prompted one after another, and so I go into the file. I look at the guy's age. He's my age, and the Lord brought to my remembrance an instance at St. Matthew's Cathedral on the playground, and I look at the name, and I remember the face, black curly hair. And we got into a fight, and I beat his ass on the playground.
How old were you then?
Probably fourth grade, something like that, fifth grade.
Do some damage with those fourth grade arms like this, baby.
Yeah, dude.
I was such an idiot. So I said, let me ask you this. And I said, did you go to St. Matthew's Cathedral? And he goes, yeah, I did. And I said, do you remember me beating your ass on the playground in fourth grade?
That is so Michael.
And there's this pause, and he goes, no, I don't. And I said,
Trust me, it happened, yeah.
Did you have black curly hair? And he said, yes, I did. And I said, dude, that was me. I remember you. And so this is what happens.
It's a whole lot easier to remember, by the way, when you deliver the ass whipping.
When you're on the other end
you
of
tend
it.
to shut things off that are traumatic in your life, and you don't know what the scars you left with him were. But
anyway, so
Never mind.
he's a retired fireman. Okay, we had that in common. We knew all the same people. And I said, "Do you got time? You got time to meet?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so we got together at the Moose. Great place. Anyway. And we're talking, and he's just talking. He said, yeah, I don't remember the ass whooping, but he said I was probably an asshole and I'd probably deserved it. And we started talking, and he said, yeah, I lost my son. He died about 3 years ago. And he said, and I've just had all these instances in my life. And the more we got to talk, and I just listened. Mm-hmm. I said, Ted, I don't believe this is a coincidence. And I told him about the podcast and just gave him a little bit of, my story, not much. So we went to the parking lot, and I just said, he's going in for major surgery. And I said, can I just pray with you? He's like, yeah. So I just held his hands, and we prayed in the parking lot. And he's texted a couple times since then, but that's not a coincidence, guys. Yeah. For me to come to I have trouble remembering.
It's like 50 years.
Yeah, dude.
Easy.
That's wild.
You haven't talked to this guy in 50
years.
50,
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's when I look at it and I'm like, and I'm thinking about my story as you're telling this story, because, like, you guys know what I've gone through, work, all that stuff, and, ended up taking a job, didn't work out, ended up leaving the job in the middle of the worst employment. I mean, everything I did was wrong.
We lived it.
Yeah, you guys lived it with me. I mean,
with a smile.
And all of a sudden, like, my business partner comes into play. He's a guy I was in college with who happens to be getting out of the Army at the same time, who his sister gets laid off from a similar employment company, so she already has experience. Now she joins my company, for commission only, because that's all I can afford. And then I have this other kid who was my mom's best friend and work, boss at work. Her son now works for me as well. All of a sudden, the year's kicking off, and now it's just taking off in directions all out of place, right? Which is awesome. And I'm not saying that, but there's no way that if my dad hadn't got transferred from Baltimore, Maryland to Eastern Kentucky, of all places, I don't meet this kid. I don't meet his sister. My mom doesn't work for this woman. And then you're going to tell me that now 20 plus years later, and we're talking 25 years later, 30 years later after the transfer, now all of these things are coming together. And I was even fighting if I wanted to do this thing. And now it's just falling into my lap. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying because there was a creator that had this story that wrote it. That's not coincidence. There's too many years apart for coincidence at this point, right? Like,
yeah.
How much love does he have for us
to think that out? I mean, he's been thinking this out for eternity, because every line had to line up for my friend to even be created. His parents had to be created by their parents at the time they were created, when they were created, at the place they were created, to have the experiences that eventually led them to create him. He had to have his experiences to be the type of person I want to be friends with. I had to have my experiences from my ancestors thousands of years ago to get me to Eastern Kentucky from a random job move so I could meet this kid, play football with him. We couldn't have been any more different. I'm from the city. He lives on a farm, has cows, horses, and wears a cowboy hat. I'm like, I don't know, who the hell is this guy? I mean, like, we shouldn't have even been friends. I mean, but we're best friends. He goes off to war 3 times, survives 3 different explosions in Afghanistan that he shouldn't have survived, by the way.
Wow.
People died literally to the front and the back of him. He's in the Humvee that doesn't die. And, like, here we are sitting now 20 years later. He's leaving the Army, and we're starting a business together. Like, and he's a believer, by the way, which I didn't even know until we talked.
Come on.
Literally almost 17 years after the last time we saw each other. It was like 16 or 17 years we hadn't seen each other.
Man, it's giving me goosebumps. And think of how Ted could have responded. Oh, yeah, I remember you, jackass.
Absolutely.
You're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't. Thank God that the Lord took the memory out of that. And he said, and he was humble and he was sweet, and we talked, and it was an opportunity to just pray for him. And I said, listen to the podcast, man. I said, I'm going to bring you up one of these days, because it's not a coincidence that we got together after 50-some years.
And if his son didn't die 3 years earlier, then this is like where the story is going to go. I'm really excited to see where it goes, because his son doesn't die. He's not having a major surgery. He's not going through this, like, really shitty time of life. And then the right person shows up that he's willing to talk to because of some minor link in the past.
Right.
I mean, you're a blip on his radar.
And the fact that you noticed the name. Because
that's what I'm saying.
You get 70 of these, and it's like, all right, check. You don't even have a person to those. You just got a Jane Doe, John Doe.
Even the accident that happened that caused him to come in touch with you.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure when that happened, he probably like, why is this happening? Like, this sucks. But God worked it out.
Yeah, because he lost. We ended up totaling his vehicle. He lost his vehicle, and that alone is to people, and that's why I have such an empathy for people that go through this, because it's like, it's life changing, especially if you're injured. It's life changing. But for the Lord to just say, this guy, remember, and it brought back all these things, and it's like, that's not a coincidence.
No.
It's not.
We're so busy with our life, we don't recognize things, right? So, I had that experience in Vero Beach 5 years ago, when I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, and I took a lunch break. I was on the pier overlooking the beautiful ocean, and this dude standing right next to me, drinking a cup of coffee, looking out there, and he just looks at me and goes, "Isn't this gorgeous?" And being in Florida, I'm like, "Yeah, it's awesome. I'll see it every day."
It's Wednesday.
Yeah, it's Wednesday, right? And he goes, "I just think it's so beautiful, and I'm so glad that I packed up everything and I moved here last night." I said, "You just moved here?" And he goes, "Yeah, I found a job at Firestone or Goodyear or whatever, and I packed up everything in my truck right there, and this is my first stop before I go in and go visit the apartment that I'm going to rent." Fantastic. All right, man. Well, hey, I got to go. Got a doctor I need to see. I'll talk to you later, bro. And I pulled out of that parking lot, and I saw his truck. He had come from Springdale, Arkansas. And I saw his truck, and it was rusted out fenders, baling wire holding things together, and all that. It looked like the Beverly Hillbillies.
Wow.
Pulled out. I go like 2 or 3 miles down the road, and I'm at a stoplight, and I just felt the Holy Spirit
Ding,
say,
ding, ding, ding.
"Are you stupid or something?"
Yes, Lord.
I just teed that up for you, bro. I just teed him up. You didn't even ask his name. And I looked at my watch, and I said, I turned it back around and drove back to that place. And, they have restaurants all around it. And I couldn't see him, so I went to restaurant, and there he was, drinking a beer and eating some French fries. And I pulled up next to him. I was in my suit, and I got a beer, and I said, "I'm Trey, and I'm not sure what this means, but I feel like the Lord told me I needed to come back and see you." But I missed it. I made, luckily he slapped me. He gave me every chance in the world. The guy gave me a story. He just doesn't believe in Jesus because of all these horrible things that have happened to him that caused him to come down. His name was Nathan. That's all I remember. But we make that, we don't pick it up at all. And there was no coincidence that happened. So we make a decision to act on it, right? Or we unclutter our mind for just a second to listen. Let me ask you this. What about when Jesus, and we're going to be celebrating here next month, when he came through that eastern gate on that donkey? What about the Jews? And that's coming in, and the prophecy of him coming in on a colt on the back of a donkey. Do the Jews just go, it's just a coincidence? All those prophecies that came true through Christ, were they saying,
All 300 that were made 500 years earlier?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you've spoken about this before, that, the chances for all of those prophecies coming true, it's like lay out a foot deep of silver dollars over the whole state of Texas and make one of them red. And if you find that one, that's the
Without looking blindfolded. And it's the first one you touch.
And it's the first one I touch.
That's the odds.
So how many of them just say that's coincidence or that's God's plan?
Yeah.
He's in it.
Well, and that's kind of where I was headed with the predestination thing, because somebody out there is going to be listening and saying, "Hey, then that means God already, He's put you on your path, and He's chosen who goes to heaven. He's chosen who goes to hell."
Right.
Like
that's another podcast.
Right. It is, and I don't want to go down that route, but it's important that just because there's no coincidence doesn't mean that God made the choices for you.
Right.
Because he could have still kept driving, and you don't know what seed you planted. We plant seeds all the time, and somebody else may water them. I could have just said, whatever, name.
Oh, I think I went to school with him back in the day. But I got to get to the number 69 or 70. Yeah.
Or he could have just pushed it off to the end because he didn't want to deal with it.
Exactly.
And then forgotten about it. Yeah. Wow.
So if we believe that God's, He's got a plan, He's got a purpose, like He orchestrated these things that happen, that causes us to believe that there is a purpose, right? And people who just say, well, it's coincidence.
There's no purpose to it.
There's no purpose to it. Everything's random. It's
see what you're saying.
What value is there in life then? What hope is there if everything just happens by chance? You just hope you get lucky.
Yeah.
That something good happens, hopefully. But we have that belief that God is in control of it all, and that He is sovereign. Because that, in talking about the predestination thing, we have to believe that He's sovereign, right? And that He's righteous and holy, and that His decisions are for the best.
Right.
So, for us to believe that, we have hope and we have purpose in our lives.
Yeah.
And so I think that grounds us, as opposed to people that wake up every day, I don't know what's going to happen, random coincidence, chance, who knows?
We kind of had that discussion at the rescue mission Tuesday night with our mentoring group. And I just went straight. One of my favorite illustrations of this is no chance. There's no coincidence. Is Francis Chan when he from Crazy Love Time, his book, and he said, just think about this. If you think it's just chance, why did God create the world for us, right? But He put that little blue planet with the land on it and the water to sustain us perfectly, and He set it around this flaming ball of gas and sulfur that's like 1,000 times bigger than it, and placed it perfectly where if it would have been a little closer, we'd burn up. If it would have been a little further away, we freeze to death. And He set it up to where it would spin gazillion miles an hour around this thing and maintain us.
Okay, good example is, I guess it's cold up in Minnesota. I've heard people talking of 40 degrees below zero. So perfectly placed, what causes it not to go to 200 degrees below zero in the wintertime?
Yeah.
We can handle 40 wind chill or whatever it is, but you get to a point and you're like, it's perfectly placed because or it gets hot in Florida, man. We get 99 degrees and 100%.
It could be 150.
Could be 150, could be 200, could be 240, and we're all burning up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He gives it just enough where we complain about the heat.
We'll complain about it.
Yeah. But it's perfectly set.
Yeah, you're talking. That's actually some of the stuff we're covering in our small group right now. Is the design by the designer? How if you're an atheist and you believe that there is everything, there's a theory out there that over enough time with enough randomness, anything can happen essentially.
Right.
And that and I guess you can't really say it couldn't happen, but the problem is that the things that would have to be so random to happen actually can't happen, like DNA. A horse can't breed with a cow. It just doesn't happen. Sure. That's why you can't have one cell turn into all these animals.
Right.
One cell also never has turned into multiple cells. We've never seen it happen. Doesn't happen. Carbon also, we've never been able to make it into life, even though all life has carbon. So all these theories of randomness and time actually doesn't work.
We got to get Bill Nye, the science guy, on here. Let's have a little chat.
So when you're talking about the world and its axis, if the world isn't tilted at the exact degree it is, gravity doesn't work. And it actually would either be so much it would crush us, or it would be implode the planet, or it would be not enough and we'd float around. And with that, none of the life can live without the tilt of the axis of the Earth. All these things that are so perfectly in line all point back to a designer.
Right.
And you can't deny it. There's no other way. You've never seen a piece of art that's beautiful and said, with enough time, the paint jumped up and made this beautiful painting.
Right.
No, there was an artist. And everything points back to the designer, the creator. The created have a creator. And our creator happens to be so awesome and can see everything into the future that he makes sure that our lives don't have coincidences. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Sorry, I just get off on a little tangent there, but it's just so cool. I mean, I just can't help it. I get fired up when I think about it. And for anyone that's sitting there thinking, it's just a coincidence, I'm listening to this podcast today. No, it wasn't a coincidence. Thank you. I mean, have a listen for a minute. Think about the fact that maybe not a coincidence. I mean, this could be your shot. Not to get too over the top, but
none should perish. That's His goal.
What blows my mind is that I'm sure God has a perfect idea of how things should go.
But it was called Eden.
Right, but we're disobedient. We don't do what He wants us to do. So it's like, how does He redirect? How does He change the circumstances so that His plan still comes to pass? You know what I mean? Because His will is going to be done, but we're screwing it up all the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So to me, it's even more mind blowing that His will still comes to pass, because he wants to use us, He wants to work through us, but most of the time we don't listen, we don't do the right thing.
Right.
And so He's constantly redirecting or rearranging things to where it still happens. So sometimes I wish I could see what was His perfect plan. How would it have looked if everybody had listened to Him and obeyed? Because every day we're screwing up, and His plan still comes to pass.
That's one of Michael's favorite verses. Is "My yoke is easy." You know what I mean? If you truly follow Him and stay in that path, it may not be what you wanted, but it'd be a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
I mean, No, it's a good point. It's a very good point.
If you're not a Christian, you're an idiot.
There you go.
That's a
t-shirt.
That's a t-shirt right there.
I mean, I can't fathom any other way to live. There's no peace. There's no joy.
We've all tried it.
In our yes,
We've
done it.
all tried it.
We've done it.
some of us worse than you.
That's all right. We all need role
We all
models.
need Brad, and he is. I love the fact that he hasn't gone down that path. And look at his heart. Look at his the way he. I mean, I just love everything about it because he hasn't tasted that.
But he's tasted strife. He's tasted
yeah.
marriage
Well,
conflict
true. Yeah,
and
yeah.
parenting
Absolutely.
conflict. You know, those things rip at his heart, just like, you know, dumb mistakes we made as well. But not that he made a dumb mistake. It just...
Well, I mean, it's a good example of just because you're a Christian. I mean, even how he ended up with his wife and his first daughter wasn't doing
Wasn't
what he was
ideal.
supposed to
It
do.
just wasn't...
Right.
It wasn't textbook.
It wasn't God's plan,
But he was going to a Christian
but he
school.
redeemed it.
That's right.
There you go.
Say, if you grew up in the household I did in the 80s in Tulsa, you would have eaten a lot of casseroles and listened to Stryper and gone to church 3 times a week like I did.
Yeah.
The same thing.
What was your favorite casserole?
Oh, boy. I don't know.
My wife and I were talking about that not last time, a couple nights ago. So, like, growing up, we ate a lot of casseroles. But
We
like,
did, too.
It's because we're talking about like, my mom's, like, old recipes and whatnot. And it's like we don't eat any of them, but it's because they're all terrible for
know
you. It's like,
Right.
But that's why they taste so good.
absolutely.
No coincidences. And every day, God does something that I go, you're here. And if we have that mindset and that heart set about us, it just helps us get through that day. And when we just stop and listen and don't chalk it up to that person knocked on my door and it just was haphazard. You know, my dad, you know, going through 7 years of hell with my mom in the Alzheimer's journey, right? And he's by himself living in that house up there in Heritage Isle, and he was out working and planting some flowers, or I can't remember, washing his car, but he was in the driveway, and he just noticed he wasn't alone. And he turned around, and there was a woman that obviously was distorted and out of place.
Disoriented.
Disoriented. I'm sorry,
That's right.
disoriented. And a couple of seconds, about a minute later, she's talking to him, and she's talking to him like she knows him and all this stuff. He had no clue who she was. Obviously, you could tell things just weren't right. And about 2 minutes later, this car pulls up. Honey, can you come with me? Let's don't mess with this man. And Dad walked away from that. He met them. He told them about my mom and her journey in Alzheimer's and how he couldn't deal with the pain and the stress and anxiety of it if it wasn't for Jesus Christ in his life helping and guiding him and being with him through it. That was no coincidence, because that was the beginning of my dad's ministry with the Alzheimer's Roundtable Caregiver Support Organization that he created. This was just 3-4 years ago, and now they reach people in almost every state of the country with their services.
And your dad is a cool story, by the way, because
Yeah.
how old was he when he actually found Jesus?
Dad will be 83 this year. It was 5 years ago when we baptized him.
Yeah, because he said I was a believer for all that time.
Yeah.
And then it took your mom and all the things he was going through.
To see how God was touching him in so many ways.
And what a terrible disease, by the way.
Right.
Terrible. And then, but that's where he found his most peace.
Right.
Was in his late 70s,
Yeah.
dealing with one of the worst traumatic events you could deal with.
He stood up in front of all those men at that breakfast and said, "Don't wait till you're 78."
That's what he was. Yeah.
Remember that?
Uh-huh.
And I've cried over him and prayed over him since then, just like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is happening. That's that's just the perfect description of God's timing is always perfect.
Yep.
And it was perfect for him. He's having a great impact on so many people that are calling him, help me get through this. My wife's struggling, my husband's struggling, and I can't pick them up anymore. I can't care for them. And but it was just one lady who was had dementia, that had walked out of her house and was walking around the neighborhood that walked up to him.
You talk about an ego trip you have to be on to be listening to this show right now.
Right.
Hearing us talk about how random these things would have to be. And the odds of, by the way, all the randomness, like we're talking so much, the amount of randomness to get it right is unfathomable. But what an ego you have to have sitting there listening to us to deny the fact that there is a creator that's pointing the world in a direction for you in a positive way, and all you have to do is say, I want you in my life.
Mm-hmm. We want to be in control. We don't want to give up control to somebody else. But look how that turns out. I talk to my son about this all the time. Like when we are left to our own devices doing what we feel like we should do, it always crashes and burns.
Right.
You know, his way is better. So
happened to me. It led me to a suicidal moment.
Yeah.
You know, but in that darkness, in that divorce, in that strained relationship, it started this ministry.
Yeah.
There was no coincidence that I was in that pickup truck contemplating taking my life to where we are now.
Oh, and that in itself, right? If you decided to not listen and you went through with it, what death and destruction besides your own would have been in the wake?
I know. The ripple effect of what I was going to do.
And how many men.
Right.
Yeah.
So, hey.
I was just thinking of the scripture that says God works all things together for good for those
Romans,
who love him and are called according to his purpose. Mm-hmm. And I've been through a lot of difficult things in the past few years, and sometimes, every once in a while, I'll be in the middle of it, and I'll be like, I wonder how God's going to work this out. Like I'm going to have a story. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're in pain and you're just mad and this sucks. But sometimes I'm thinking, how's God going to work this together for my good? You know, so I try to live that way every day. Whatever happens, or if I see somebody else in a bad situation, it's like, man, God can work this together for your good.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you, man. Not just to say it, but like I do mean it. Like when I see you after some of these things and I hear the way you talk about it, but like, and you just kind of laugh about it and like your positive attitude, and I sit there and I think to myself, like, man, like what was I just upset about? Like if he can have that attitude in that moment, why can't I have this attitude?
Yeah.
So I mean, I got to tell you, like that in itself is working God's plan for you.
Yeah.
In fact, I can hear you say that, and you're living a life that I don't know that I would live. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
that's hard.
I don't know that I would do it.
Yeah.
but we all have our things, right? We all have our things that we go through, and we look back and go, I don't know if I could ever do it again or how I got through it. But we know God gives us grace. That Holy Spirit within us is giving us strength to get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. This is a great combo, and we're going to continue this as we move forward in the coming weeks. Also, no coincidence. Tim Tebow's coming to join us.
Commercial.
Yeah, commercial time. As we wrap up, but tickets are selling June 13th. KingCenter.com, Melbourne, Florida. A night where we celebrate fathers and families. It's called the Grace for Family Experience. We got Cav Worship is going to be bringing some amazing music, some messaging from different Impact brothers about how their marriages and their families benefited through Christ and their focus on who Christ is in them. And then, of course, Tebow is going to give some amazing testimony to those facts as well, as he looks back on his life with his father, his marriage to his new wife, Demi, and it's going to be a great night. So just go to KingCenter.com, get your tickets. Tickets start at $40. They go up to about $100. There's a price range for everybody, and come celebrate with us in June. Also, just want to let you know, the guys that are veterans that are living in Brevard County, Impact Warriors, we're going to have a breakfast to honor these veterans, and we're going to be talking about being forgiven and free, and to help the Impact Warrior men that might be struggling with civilian life type things. And that's going to be at the Church at Viera, February 24th. Free breakfast served at 8 a.m., so come join us at that. So, but in any case, love you guys.
Love you.
Great discussion. We can't wait we got at least one guest who's going to come on next week, and then we'll be back again for the four of us just to rant and rave, eat some wings,
Bust
talk
some
about
balls.
Jesus and men's issues, and take it from there. So until then, I'm Trey.
I'm Michael.
I'm Brad.
I'm Jeremy.
We are the
Cussin Christians.
Come on, right there.
Love it.
Love it.
Helmet boy.
Helmet
boy.
Yeah, that was
I saw that in the video. I'm like, I see this blue helmet coming. I'm like, oh no, is he wearing a helmet?
Helmet
had
boy.
to, man. It wasn't a real dune buggy. It was one of those all-terrain